Yo, Standard VR here, back with your Week 5 pick'ems for the SPL Pokemon Draft League. There are some absolutely insane matchups happening this week, so make sure you check out all of the battles on Week 5. So, to start, we are starting with the Baton Rouge Butterfrees versus the Mediterranean Mimikyus. That's a +1 versus Viz. I did help the Butterfrees prep for this matchup, so I'm not going to speak too much on it. However, this was a very, very hard match to prep for. That Urshifu Single Strike, that Iron Crown Dragapult Intake Core, so much damage coming out from Viz. Super fast, super powerful. Obviously, you have that Araquanid with Wide Guard that gives the Butterfrees a very hard time. Can't go for those Dragon Energies, can't go for those Rock Slides, can't go for those Hyper Voices. They could flip TR with that Meowstic and Florges. I don't see Regigigas Coughing coming to this matchup. However, I do think that with what we cooked up, I think if we play our cards right, and bring the right 4, bring the right tech, I do think that the Butterfrees have a very good shot of beating the Mimikyus this week. Now, is that because I typically don't bet against friends? Yeah, but I'm giving this one to the Butterfrees this week. Next up, we have Montreal Ice Cubes versus the Oklahoma City Thunderbolts, Amel versus Clover Bells. This matchup looks super fun on paper. Again, I love the Murkrow Typhlosion. It's a lot of damage right off the rip. However, I don't think you can underestimate the bulk that Amel's team can bring. That Hoopa Unbound, Indeedee can always be EV trained to live just about anything, or you just focus sash it. Always an option. Okidogi seems to never be able to be O-code by anything. Skeledirge is obviously just a defensive threat. So this one is tricky. I do think that Clover Bells has to be very wary about going too hard into the fast mode too quickly, because if Amel and the Ice Cubes just flip a Trick Room, I think that's GG's. So I am going to give this one to the Montreal Ice Cubes. I think they're going to be able to win it out this week, because I think that they have the ability to basically send out their Mons turn 1 and either bluff TR and not set it and just blow things up, or to be able to set TR and basically sweep from there. Obviously, Clover Bells has the Blood Moon, never to be underestimated, or that Glastrier. But I do think that Amel and the Ice Cubes will have what it takes to win this one out. Next up, we have Seabad with the Detroit Steel Wings and Mount with the Immunity Idols. This is a very interesting matchup. I think Seabad has a couple defensive options, and like the Latios that can kind of wall a lot of the Rain core that the Idols want to bring. I do think that Mount and the Immunity Idols are going to be able to win this one if they really lean into that Rain core, that Pelipper, Basculegion, or Chaladon. You get Mousehold. I think Mousehold with Friend Guard is absolutely cracked in this matchup. I think the redirection is going to be just really nice. There's a lot of just single target damage from the Steel Wings this week. Obviously, you can go Dazzling Gleam, Fluttermane, Earthquake, Torterra, that kind of stuff. And obviously, you have some disruption with the Illumise. You can start throwing off some Thunder Waves, start trying to slow things down. And I think that's what Seabad is going to have to do if he wants to win out against Mount this week. I think Mount just has a lot of overwhelming offensive pressure off the rip, out the gate. I think that Mount will be able to win this one out, just being able to just chunk everything right away and then clean up with like a Basculegion in the back, or even like an Archaludon in the back. I don't know if Seabad has the defensive core to really win this one out. So let's see if he proves me wrong. I'm going to give this week to the Immunity Idols. Next up, we have the Melbourne Rotoms versus the Vancouver Vaporeons. Cybertron versus Keeley. This looks like a really fun matchup. Obviously, the Vaporeons have a really fast team. You go that Torn, you go Tailwind, you have things that hit hard like Baxcalibur, Hisuian Arcanine, Quackavole, Johto Typhlosion, which is very nice. However, the Rotoms do have a very strong Trick Room core. And on that merit, I do think that the Rotoms will be able to win this one out if they really lean into that bulky screens, set up Trick Room, sweep with Ursaluna and Amoris. I'm not seeing a lot of resistances to Ursaluna. The Vaporeons are going to have to really preserve and get the Terras right, I think, to be able to weather the storm that the Rotoms are going to bring this week with that strong Trick Room core. I'm giving this week to the Rotoms. Next up, we have the Toronto Tyrants versus the Jubilife Piplups. Nexus versus James Beck. Two absolutely busted players in draft leagues. Obviously, the Tyrants have that really strong Sun core with Torkoal, Lilligant, Charizard, Walking Wake. They could also flip it and go slow with Porygon 2, Torkoal, Iron Hands, Clefable even. Malamar could get dicey. The Piplups, though, they have the tried and true VGC core of Glimmora, Dondozo, Tatsugiri. They do have Fletchinder instead of Talonflame, but it's basically the same thing. And Golden Go. The Tyrants definitely have their work cut out for them if they want to win this matchup. Some interesting things to note about the Piplups team. It doesn't really look like they have super good weather control. It looks like the Tyrants can kind of come out with Torkoal, go, hey, it's going to be sunny. What are you going to do about it? Fletchinder gets Rain Dance. Paldean Tauros Blaze gets Rain Dance. Why does Tauros get Rain Dance? I have no idea. But it does. I mean, also, Tauros Blaze can just start, like, hitting things with fire moves in the sun. But I think it'd be really cool to see, like, Rain Dance Fletchinder, Rain Dance Tauros to really come in and enable that Dondozo to maybe get that Golden Go to live things a little bit better and to really disable what the Tyrants want to do. So, this week I am going to give this to the Piplups because I think that they have a little bit more of a flexible team, a little bit more of a team that can tech really tricky things to kind of stop a lot of what the Tyrants want to do. So, this week, I think the Piplups might win out. Next up, super excited about this match. We have the New York Yveltals versus the Los Angeles Wakers. Joseph Ugarte versus Joey Pokeaim MD. Obviously, the Yveltals, a lot of experience in VGC, a lot of experience playing high-level VGC, and their team is so spicy with that Rillaboom, Gouging Fire, Sneasler, Galarian Moltres, Mimikyu, and the Wakers have a team that can go a lot of different directions, a lot of different ways. I really like Aim's chances in this matchup just because I think he has a super strong Trick Room core that is very hard for the Yveltals to deal with. Like Terra Bronzong can kind of always guarantee Trick Room here on like a Mental Herb to stop Taunt. And the Hydrapple comes in and just kind of like sweeps everything. So I think the Yveltals this week need to be very respectful of the Waker's ability to go Trick Room and just kind of sweep from there. Because the Wakers do have, you got Sneasel with Fake Out, you got Furret with Follow Me. It's hard. It's going to be hard for the Yveltals to figure out which direction the Wakers are going to want to go to set this Trick Room, and then sweep. And as always, Joey does have that Annihilate, which has been an absolute menace in past weeks, just being able to just obliterate teams. So I think this week, I am going to give this one to the LA Wakers because of, a strong Trick Room core, and I don't see how the Yveltals can necessarily stop the Wakers from getting that Trick Room up. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Make sure you check it out. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins versus the Miami Palafins. Now, I do know that the Dolphins have a new coach in Shroom, so we will get that updated for next week. This is a very interesting matchup. The Dolphins, I think, looking at it, I really think that they're going to have to lean into Oranguru and setting that Trick Room and sweeping from there. I really think Primarina is going to be absolutely pivotal. I think Amoonguss does a lot of work here. Obviously, Ensign, really good at walling that Ogerpon. Really bad into Keldeo. T-Tar Excadrill, though, on the Palafins. So much damage. So fast. I'm gonna give this one to Tone and the Palafins. Basically because I think that Tone has a team with much more control, much more dynamic things. Like, you got that Volbeat. You got Sandrush Excadrill. I really think he's just going to be able to overwhelm the Dolphins with too much control and not letting them do what they want to do. I think Tone sets the pace for these matches, and I think the Dolphins will have a hard time keeping up. Let's see if they prove me wrong. So I'm going to give this week to the Palafins. Next up, we have the Shoutcasting Sylveons and the Harbor Glaze Lilligans. This is a super cool matchup. I absolutely love the team that the Sylveons drafted. The bulk and ability to go for big setups with like Calm Mind Suicune, Corviknights Volcarona, you get the screens Klefki. There's so many options for the Sylveons to set up and start sweeping. That being said, the Lilligans though, they have these big dragons over here with Garchomp and Raging Bolt that I don't really see a great way for the Sylveons to deal with, because a lot of the Sylveons' damage output is that Fire, Water, Grass core, which doesn't really work against things like Raging Bolt and Garchomp. They do have the Alolan Ninetales that set up Veil, so I really think that if the Lilligans can get that Veil up, they get those big sweepers like Garchomp, like Raging Bolt, like Volcanion. I think that they can win out versus the Sylveons. I think the Dragons will outvalue what the Sylveons want to bring, and I think the Lilligans can win this week. So this week is going to the Lilligans. Next up, we have the Golden State Gallades versus the Philadelphia Stunkies. Owen versus Shuckle. This was a hard one to figure out. Obviously, the Stunkies have things like Priority Tailwind, you can go Trick Room Sinistcha. They have a lot of control on board. Landorus can obviously intimidate POW. It can intimidate Dragonite if they're not inner focus. The Stunkies have a lot of control. But I really think that Xianpao, Ogerpon, Dragonite core that Owen and the Gallades have over there, I think they can overpower the Stunkies this week. I really think that D-Knight and POW just go super hard into that team. Just some big extreme speeds, some big sucker punches. You have a lot of priority. You got Follow Me from Ogerpon. Obviously, their Sinistcha can come in and Rage Powder some of that stuff away, so they got to be careful of that. But I think that the Gallades can win this one out just on the sheer power of their physical damaging attackers and all the priority that they have on board. So let's see if Owen and Gallades Let's see if they can close this one out. Next up, we have the Brooklyn Bengals versus the Toronto Maple Mews. Moxie Boosted versus Sierra Dawn. Two big VGC titans again. This is a very interesting matchup that I'm super excited to watch. So there's not a lot of priority tailwind. I mean, there's no priority tailwind. Obviously, you have tailwind Roaring Moon. There's a lot of inconsistent speed control, if I can call it that. Moves that miss. You have Icy Wind Iron Bundle. You have Electro Web Regieleki. Obviously, you could Trick Room Comfy, but like that's asking for a lot of permission. So this will be a super fun match to watch. What I'm looking at though is that the Mews have a lot of physical attackers on their side, so I really think the Bengals are going to want to really like lean into that Arcanine, bringing that to get those big Intimidates off. Even though they have an Ogerpon Wellspring on the Mews, I really think that Intimidate goes a long way. So, that being said, I think the Bengals win this one out, because I think if they can get their screens up with the Abomasnow, they can get behind those screens. They can set the speed controls with Icy Wind, with Bundle. They can get those Intimidates off with Arcanine. I think Moxie and the Bengals have a good shot of being able to win this one out, just because of their control of the board. It'll be hard, because the Mews have an insane amount of damage coming out from their side. I think if the Bengals can play their cards right, I think they can win this one out. So this has been my Week 5 pick'ems for the SPL Pokemon Draft League. Let me know in the comments which picks you agree with, which picks you disagree with, which matchups are you most excited about watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, have a great day. Peace.